What's going on, everyone? Welcome, Rabid here, and it finally happened. We have official E300 FPGA mining for Alephium. So we're going to be checking this out, looking at some hash rates, and tell you I am coming for all your coins. So I just want to start with some baseline limitations right now. I got the Noctua fan kit on this, so that does mean I'm not going to be able to go too high a settings depending on the temperatures, but these are only 3,000 RPM, but a lot quieter than the 6,000 RPM fans, which you would hear on ASICs where they scream and they're extremely loud. They do cool better, but they're very loud. So this is going to have less airflow than those, so the temperatures could end up quite a bit higher depending. That'll decide the limiting factor on how much power I do put into this. The second thing is I got a 1200 watt server power supply right there, and that actually on 120 volt here, so I can test the power, it can only go to a maximum of 900 watts. So those are my two limiting factors here, so we'll see how this does play out. But we're going to look at some hash rates and everything on Alephium and power consumptions and see just how well FPGAs do perform. All right, so for a baseline, I just want to show you some power. I'm in some nice low efficient settings. The fan just kicked off, so you can't really see right now, but when the fan is on in auto, it stops and then it gives time for the FPGAs and the chips and everything to heat up. Then the fan kicks on to cool it. And I do find at the current settings here that I'm using about 322 watts at the wall. So I'll wait for this to kick in here. It just did. And now we're going to have a quick look here. So we can see 322 watts. You guys see that? I need a nice, there we go. 322.7 watts. So I'm actually going to crank the fan and leave it on maximum 10 the entire time, and because it's going to run a little bit cooler internally all the time, we're actually going to be using a little bit less watts throughout the entire thing, making it slightly more efficient. Okay, so I did let it sit for about 5 minutes or so, and now you can see we're at a constant around 319 watts. Now this does use the server power supply and breakout board without anything attached, about 11 watts. So I am going to have to remove that from there. Now in theory, depending on the settings we get to and the power we do see here, based on these ones, we could run two of these on this single server power supply, and that would kind of cut the power between both of them at about 5.5. We may lose a bit more power as well because we're running more into the optimal efficiency side of the PSU. Those are all numbers that are all, we have to guess on. But right now, because I do have, these two together, I'm going to have to use that power based on only a single server power supply. But we do have to keep in mind, though, like I said, that is using 11 watts. So you can subtract that or not, or go from there. So right now I am at 600 on the core. You can only set one core, and it distributes it to all three FPGA chips there. There's no individual tweaking, at least right now, for Alephium. We'll see what happens if something changes in the future, but that's all you can do at the moment. And I am running a voltage of 600 millivolts, so the lowest I could set on this machine. So we just seen that we're around 319 point some watts, 320 watts, and we're about 14.43 gigahash or so. All right, so FPGA mining has been getting pretty popular lately. A lot of people are looking into this. And if you are looking for one of these big bad boy FPGA miners, I do have discount links in the description, so be sure to use them. You do have to use the specific code for the specific version that you want. In this case, this is the big E300, the VU35P version. Okay, so let's step it up a little bit here. So I am now at 740 on the core and 660 on the voltages. Ignore those hardware errors because that's when I was actually 650 on the core and it was telling me to add more power. So it does look like we are now stable at about 17.35 gigahash, and at the wall we are rocking about, looks like 456 watts. All right, guys, so I tried cranking this up to about 930 on the core and 830 volts. And then as soon as it kicked in, I heard it like kind of ramp down, and I checked the power and it was 945 watts. So I was like, uh-oh, that's not a good thing to do. So I quickly shut it off because remember that power supply is only supposed to be rated like 900 watts on 120 volt. Okay, so I did step it down one from that. We're about 900 on the core, 800 volts, and we are doing about 22.2 gigahash or so. So coming in to look at the wall, this is showing us about 888 watts. So we're getting pretty warm. The power supply fan is starting to ramp up a little bit, so that's using more power as well. The memory voltage control is around 82 or 83 degrees Celsius, so we're getting close to that 90 degrees. So I'm probably going to shut it down now, and this is as high as I'm going to be able to go on testing the high end here. All right, guys, so here's some initial numbers that I do have right now. Obviously, we can do a lot more tweaking. There's a lot more settings in between that we can try out as well based on this sheet from Osprey themselves. But right now, this is my initial findings. Now, we can probably move this to 630 on the core and keep the 600 millivolts on the voltage and see if that's stable or not. And that should give us a little more hash rate and keep the voltages nice and low. Regardless, quick initial settings here, and now it's looking like at the 620 core and 600 or 620 clock here and 600 on the voltage, 14.43 gigahash for our highest efficiency number of 45.09 megahash per watt ratio. Coming into the middle ground here, 456 watts with 650 on the clock, 660 on the core, 17.35 gigahash. As I stepped it up one, this is just one click higher than the original one here. That is 38.04, so we're already running a decent amount less efficient here. And then when I cranked it up, well, here I could not run it, 945 watts. I shut it off immediately. 888 watts at 900 on the core, 800 for the millivolts, was 22.2 gigahash at a megahash per watt ratio of only 25. Obviously, if you have very cheap power, it doesn't matter what these settings mean. You crank it up and you get as much as lithium as you possibly can. So let's just kind of compare that to a GPU. And one of the best consumer grade GPUs on the market right now is obviously the expensive RTX 4090, which does look like, according to hashrate.no, 6.51 gigahash. It has an efficiency of 0.02 gigahash per watt and 361 watts of power. Now, I worked this out to megahash per watt like I did with the E300. That's actually 18.03 megahash per watt, which is actually less of an efficiency as this highest setting that we have set right here, which is actually the worst one, depending if you have expensive power or not. So, you know, even at the worst efficiency numbers that I got here, this is still better than an RTX 4090. And here we can see on the low end here, 14.43 gigahash, which is over double of the RTX 4090 at only 320 watts. That's with the full power supply as well there. We are still, you know, using less power than the single 4090 on its own at 361 watts. So it is pretty clear that the FPGAs are obviously a lot better of an option for Alephium is over any GPU right now. So now let's kind of take a look at the current profitability. And you do have to point one thing out. These numbers are not in my calculations, but the Whitefire here, the dev fee for Alephium, Radiant, and Atika is 15%, where Ironfish is only 10%. So you are paying an extra 5% in dev fees over mining something like Ironfish with Team Red Miner for Alephium. But does that matter? Let's look at what it looks like before any of these dev fees are included. So based at 14.43 gigahash coming in, this is all current network conditions this very second when I checked it out. So this is everything that's happening right now, current price. So that means 5-10 minutes from now, you know, an extra terahash could come on or come off any of these networks and things will be different. This is right now, this second. So Radiant right now, based at, I guess, Alephium, at 14.43 is currently making $4.62 before any power, minus your 321 watts here, or I guess that's only 320 watts. Let's put that back to there. At 11 cent power, we are paying 84 cents in power per day. That is a profit of $3.78. Remember, before any dev fees. Radiant does look like it's about $1.83 after power, and Ironfish is $3.46. So you are more profitable before any dev fees right now mining Alephium on these machines. And then Kylocoin is way down right now at $2.37. Now I just want to have a quick peek here of this high setting here, 22.2 gigahash at 888 watts. I can't compare this because I'd have to use the high settings for the rest, but I just want to see, are we going to be more or less profitable at 11 cent per kilowatt hour utilizing that? So I'm going to go 22.2 here. 22.2 gigahash, and we are going to be using 888 watts. So get rid of that, 888, and now we are at $4.77. So in theory, yes, we are still more profitable even at 11 cents per kilowatt hour using all that extra power and running less efficient in the case of a lithium. All right, guys, so I do have this back on 240 volt. That does pretty much wrap up this video. The E300s are here and they are a dominant factor over GPUs. We've just seen how much of an efficiency boost these have over one of the most expensive consumer grade GPUs out there, the RTX 4090. So if you are looking for these bad boy machines, I do have those discount codes down in the description. Be sure to use them. I'll see you on the next one. Rabid out.